Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Richest Men in Town podcast. I'm Mike Freeman, and along with my good friend and co-host Tyler Gould, we're excited to welcome you to our little podcast project. Tyler and I are just a couple of middle-aged husbands and dads driven to live our best lives. We want to be better every day, so here we'll be sitting down with great people. Not famous people, but great people that we admire, to learn their secret to living the rich life. Probably not the rich life you're thinking of. Our guests come in humbled and surprised at the invitation and hopefully leave feeling proud and grateful, realizing just how good they really have it. So pull up a chair, stay a while, and raise a glass with us as we toast our guests to the richest men in town.
How are you feeling about what just happened?
Man, I feel honored to be in this space with you tonight, honestly. We talk about the rich life, and part of that combination, part of that recipe of a rich life for me is friends.
Yeah.
And tonight I'm reminded of the goodness of the friends that I have in my life and just how grateful I am, right? So tonight we had Brian Beasley on.
Yeah.
Brian Beasley is a Reading guy, friend of mine. He's a guy that I admire, I respect. I respect him professionally. I respect him personally. And so, of course, I'm going to reach out and extend the invitation for him to come on this podcast. And he delivered some powerful things tonight.
Well, I got to tell you, it's typically in the world of richest men in town, we have a pre-show call with our guests. We did not have the opportunity.
I was nervous. Honestly. I was
a little nervous myself with Brian, but I'll tell you what, he brought the heat tonight. And I loved every second of it. We went to some different places tonight with Brian. What stands out to you in our conversation with Brian?
Intentionally seeking growth, right? Like doing the work, and it is work, folks. Growth doesn't just happen. So he talks a little bit about, squeezing in a podcast here, squeezing in a book there, squeezing in some time in the Word of God, and just, all of these things add up to a place where he's now satisfied. He even said the word, right? He feels that elusive peace that the world kind of wants to rob us of, and that really we find through faith, and we find through family and through these things that make up this rich life, and Brian is not only aware of it, he's intentionally trying to develop it and build it in other people.
Yeah. I love how he used the word satisfied, and then he quickly changed that to gratitude. And I love those. I just loved how those two words kind of fit together. I mean, look, tonight was a powerful night. He taught
really quick on that note, though, I think one of the things that the world is missing is that spirit of being content.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Right. There's this contention, but being content. And I think that in the context that he was saying, he was satisfied with what God has given him.
Yeah. Right. I'm grateful for those things that I have.
That's a rare thing.
It is a rare thing. He talked tonight about revelation. He talked about, I really loved his take on hinge moments.
Wow.
Right. And how he looked at that. I think, there was some real serious insight given into a revelatory life, and he kind of gave
me a different set of glasses to look at some things that we spend a lot of time looking at.
Yeah. You and me both. Absolutely. Yeah.
We basically maybe have a college minor, maybe even a bachelor in hinge moments. Yeah. Right. We've been doing this for a little bit. We've talked to some people about these things, and here tonight, right, 60 plus episodes down the road, he's changing my mind about that.
Yeah. I think if you're tuning in tonight and you want to learn some things about revelation, you want to learn some things about forgiveness,
submitting.
I mean, tune in and take some notes. I mean, I can tell you, Mike, I am grateful to you tonight for introducing me to Brian Beasley. I mean, that was fun, and that was it was revelatory for me. So it was very cool.
I want to throw a huge shout out to the Beasley family. Everybody, top notch. They've got a 19-year-old son fighting fires right now. right? So as a Richest Men in Town community, right, we're going to just circle around the Beasley family, show them some love, show them some thoughts and some prayers, and these families that are impacted by fires, right? These are some trying times, and I just love Brian and the way he showed up tonight.
Yeah, I think we'll go ahead and dedicate this episode to his son, who's doing some work saving a lot of people's properties and lives, fighting fires up in Northern California. So we're grateful for him. And I mean,
the idea that there's people that run to fires.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's
pretty cool.
Pretty cool stuff. And we'll dedicate tonight to our good friend Mike Diassi. Right, Mike is he's left us, but he is not forgotten. We're grateful for him. So sit back, take a piece of paper, sharpen that pencil, and remember, as we say all the time, right? It's not what we write down; it's what we do with what we wrote down. So sit down, take notes, enjoy your time with Brian Beasley on the Richest Men in Town.
Well, I've been mowing the lawn because I got this crazy idea of like going down to your place tomorrow on probably the busiest traffic day.
Yeah.
Ever.
You guys leaving at like 2 a.m.
Yeah. You know, we're going to do it like that. Sponsored by 5 Hour Energy.
That's right.
And I'll probably need 3 to get to your house, but hey, who's counting?
You know what? When you become an old man, 5 Hour Energy only lasts for 2 hours. That's how that works. So you really
5 Hour Energy is like, to our generation, 5 Hour Energy is the V8, right? The V8 that your grandpa did.
Yeah.
No, forget that. We're going to condense it down 2 or 3 ounces, 5 Hour Energy, get it going.
Let's pound it and off you go.
So to do this, I got to mow.
Okay.
And I got to mow because I'm proud.
Yeah.
Like I can't leave hay. You know what I mean? I should be able to just say, I don't care what my neighbors think.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to San Diego and hang out at the beach. But no, I gotta mow because in the back of my mind, I'm like, you can't have that guy over there, you know?
Yeah. You don't want to
judging you for your lawn.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
So I'm out there. And here's the problem. I mean, mowing before Richest Men in Town is a dangerous game because mowing puts me in a state of mind where I'm just riddled with life's questions.
Oh, the mowing does that. I like it. Okay.
Yeah. The monotonous mowing. Don't even get me started with crabgrass. I think I'm on record. My disdain for crabgrass. If anyone needs evidence that Satan is real, crabgrass. Like it's opposition, right? It's this thing that looks great. It looks green. It looks fine, right? But it grows faster than the other stuff. And then pretty soon you're shooting out and it's doing this stuff. So anyways, I tried to apply what I thought was crabgrass poison. It appears maybe it was crabgrass feed because here we are. Right. I think I have a lawn.
You have a lawn full of crabgrass. Well, let me ask you.
Right now it looks beautiful because I just mowed it.
When you whack that stuff down, it doesn't matter. It's green. It's looking good, man.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this question. You spent an hour or 2 mowing the lawn and you've got life's questions rattling around because of that.
Oh, yeah.
So tell me what's on your mind.
Okay. Is LeBron right?
About what?
LeBron James came out when they were exited gracefully from the playoffs. He came out on Twitter anti-NBA for the scheduling and said because of the quick turnaround, your favorite players basically aren't in the playoffs. Enjoy the postseason. Thank you, NBA. And when that first happened, I was like, "The freak is this?" I thought that was low. Now,
low.
Where we're at with the NBA playoffs, is LeBron right? Is it all the good players are hurt and here we are left with it? Or is this like a rising star opportunity?
Look, I was just talking to someone about this the other day. I'm like, we're going to have either the Suns, the Clippers versus the Hawks or the Bucks. Like, to me, that sounds pretty amazing. This is like teams that we've never seen in there, really. I mean, the Suns did it back in the early 90s, maybe.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And other than that, I don't remember a time in my life where the Hawks or the Bucks or the Clippers have ever sniffed a championship. So,
and they're headed by Young stars, right?
Young stars, which I think is really cool. I'm a fan of the Devin Bookers and the Trey. Was it Trey Young? Is it
Trey Young? Trey
yeah,
Young.
Trey
Devin
Young.
Booker's Devin Booker's a walking bucket, man.
Yeah. It does kind of sound like sour grapes. I mean, to a certain degree, I get where LeBron's coming from, but you fire that out after you lose. It's a bad look. You know what I mean?
What's your quote on excuses, right?
Yeah.
Any excuse, man, no matter how justified, weakens character.
That's it.
And I was like, really? That's how you're going to go?
Yeah. Yeah.
That was bad. That was bad.
It's a bad look. Yeah.
So anyways, that gets me thinking, our guest tonight is Brian Beasley, one of my favorite guys.
Okay.
I'm excited to connect you with Brian.
Yeah.
Brian is a dad. Brian's a husband. He's a basketball coach. To be honest, he's one of my free life coaches.
I
don't know how you feel about life coaches, right?
I don't have one, but
you got this podcast, right?
I got this podcast, so maybe I've got 60 of them. I don't know.
So we get together every once in a while, and we hold each other accountable. We ask each other tough questions. We check in with one another, and I'm excited to have the opportunity to connect our listeners with Brian. Who knows where this will go? Brian is a high school guidance counselor.
Yeah.
Right. So we are literally talking about somebody who's been in the trenches for like the last 18 months. Right.
I'm excited to hear from a guidance counselor, because honestly, like, my experience of a guidance counselor was just printing out some transcripts for me and telling me what school I should apply to. Like, I didn't. If there's guidance involved in that, I'm liking this, man.
Yeah. The counselor of the 90s is not the counselor of 2021. Right?
Okay.
Not the counselor of 2020. And I'm excited too. We might leave the script a little bit. I'm curious to see, what lessons, we're going to be talking to a dude super relaxed now, because these teachers, man, when school's out, they let their hair down.
I'm married to one, man. She hasn't been home for 2 weeks, I mean.
So it'll be interesting now that he's kind of out of that war that he's been in, trying to support and help students. It'll be interesting to see what he's taken away from this COVID pandemic experience. So I'm excited to see where all that goes, and in the end, I just want to go on record. I think I've said that every man should be mowing his own lawn. I changed my mind.
Yeah.
There's a kid out there that can make $15 or something.
Yeah. That's a great point. I mean, maybe every man should be helping a young man earn a few bucks. Maybe that's what it should be.
I've been addicted. Abe Freeman has spoiled me. Not only is he our intern extraordinaire, does the show art for the richest men in town. Every once in a while, I'll pull up in the driveway and boom, the lawn is mowed.
Wow. Just out of the blue.
Yeah. With
It's
no
not like-
prompting.
No assignment given.
And you start thinking, okay, what is he buttering me up for? And I don't care. At that point.
But
Butter
here's the
me
thing.
up.
I know Abe Freeman, and I don't think there's an ulterior motive in that.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm
thinking that the author of the 5 love languages needs to add a 6th language, and it's called "Do My Yard Work."
I agree with that. Yeah.
So, those are thoughts. Those are thoughts from the mower. Yeah, it's kind of like Eric Goss, right? I'll do an Apple Notes, do thoughts from the lawnmower.
Thoughts from the mower. That's that's a new segment on the richest men in town.
Hey, shout out. Abe Freeman just recorded his first podcast.
Hey, now, what's the podcast?
Today.
Okay. Let's hear it.
It's him and his friend.
Uh-huh.
They sit in Abe's minivan and they talk hip hop and music. Hip hop and basketball.
Okay. So does this podcast have a name, and is it published?
Oh, we're not there yet.
But the richest men in town will unveil the name when it is.
Oh,
ready.
we will come out in full support.
I want to have
full support, and maybe it's the birth of a podcast network, Tyler Gould.
Yeah, I love it.
We'll keep it in the family.
Yeah, that's right. I'll have to get my kids motivated to do the same thing. That's great, man. I love it. I'm excited about that. That's awesome.
Yeah, and Abe told me we should take this thing to TikTok.
Us to TikTok?
Yeah, I don't know. TikTok podcast is a thing now. I don't know what that is. I don't know what TikTok is. a little out of it. I thought TikTok was short little dances.
I know what TikTok is because, see, the rule in my house is if you have an account where you produce content for that account, whether it be Facebook, whatever it is, right? I have to be your friend on that account.
So you can see the content.
So I can see the content. So my daughter has an account on TikTok. And so therefore I know what TikTok is. And in fact, every once in a while, when I have moments of time, which I do.
You create content on TikTok?
I do not, but I watch fail videos and they're fantastic. So there you go.
Okay. So out there in the world, there are Gould children that have created content on TikTok.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Are they on the, because I'm hearing things like there's a guy who worked down at the burrito shop down the road.
Yeah.
Who's now in Hollywood because like TikTok, he's TikTok famous.
Yeah, my kids are not TikTok famous.
They're not. Okay. They're not there yet. Okay.
Yeah, they're not there yet.
Well, brace yourself because that could happen overnight.
That can't happen overnight. Hey, I'm banking on that, man. That's my retirement plan. Right there. TikTok famous.
How about we let our guy in? What do you say?
Let's do it, man. I'm excited about this.
All right. So I'm gonna let Brian Beasley into the richest man in town, and we're gonna get his thoughts on all things TikTok. Brian Beasley, are you with us? Welcome to the richest man in town, Mr. Beasley. How are you? Let's talk about meeting Roxanne at 16. Break that down for us.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So different high schools. We met at a health club through a mutual friend. And, I was going through a fairly wild stage at the time. We started dating, and I figured out very quickly that this was somebody that was different. And we had a ton of things in common. She was an athlete. I was an athlete. But through all that, we got married very young, 21. I wanted to lock that down. I wanted to make sure I didn't lose that. And, but it, she's helped me in so many ways, helped me grow, but just, she makes me want to be better. Just her unconditional love over the years, always there, always listening, always supportive, and just an amazing mom. Like I can't even, the things that she's done as a mom, with the triplets, and those first few years were rough. And she just was super mom, and excellent teacher. She worked for Mike for years out at Grant, and just a great experience. But I hit a home run with who I married. There's no doubt about it.
You can. I just want to go on. I just want to add to that a little bit. I agree with all of that as far as Roxanne's character. What stands out to me is the way you guys are living your life. I think it's a light, and I think people see that. But like Tyler, this is the kind of lady that I don't know what her end of the day habit looks like or routine looks like, but there would be on occasion 10:30 at night, like I would get a text expressing gratitude for something that happened that day. Like, I think I even went to her eventually and was just like, talk to me about your process here. It's almost like she's reflecting on the day and reaching out and giving thanks to people, letting them know, not just maybe in prayer saying, hey, God, I'm glad this happened, but picking up the phone and shooting somebody a text saying, hey, that thing that you did, that was cool. And I just want to let you know, I appreciate it. You talk about swimming upstream, right? You talk about like, that is not normal. It should be, but because it's peculiar, it stands out. Right. And I love you guys for who you are, for walking it, right? Not just talking it, but for walking it. But I just want to tip my hat to Roxanne.
Oh, man. Thank you. Yeah. She's amazing, man.
So when we reach out, I think it was over nachos one day, man. It was like, hey, I got this podcast called Richest Men in Town, and I think you need to be a guest. What thoughts go through your head as you get that invite?
All in, man. I first of all, I'm a podcast guy, so I listen to podcasts all the time. And so you and I had talked a little bit about what you were doing. I've listened and just excited to be a part of it. Felt honored that you invited me. Honestly, is a little surprised and just excited to meet Tyler and just have an opportunity to continue to rap about some of these things that I talk about all the time.
Look, I'm excited about where we're going to go tonight, because first of all, when Mike told me about you, told me your background, I was like, let's do this, man. This is going to be a party tonight. And when you brought up the word growth, you said, I'm about growth. I love that. I think Mike and I are on the record that this is something we're pursuing on a regular basis and failing at on a regular basis, but pursuing nonetheless. Right. Where does that come from? That desire to grow and to change?
Gosh, that's a great question, Tyler. I think for me, is just chasing doing things the right way, especially when it comes to my family and as a husband and as a dad. Grew up in a situation, single parent home. Dad wasn't really a huge part of my life. I was one of those kids that I'd go over to my buddy's house and I'd say, hey, let's go get your dad to play wiffle ball with us or shoot or play with us in the pool, because I was always searching for that guy, be a leader in my life. I had two older brothers that, weren't taking that role with me. I had to grow up pretty early in a lot of ways. And so, Tyler, I think that, I made a lot of bedtime commitments, laying staring at the ceiling as a young kid, that if I ever got the opportunity to be a dad and a husband, I was going to do things in a way that were different than that was modeled for me. And so I think that's where it is, man. It's a lot of that passion for the growth, and I think maybe that continued interest in supporting other guys is rooted in maybe what I didn't have. And I think for so long I was searching for a mentor, and I think over the years what I figured out was I was the mentor for a lot of guys, and I was the peer thing was what I needed, not a mentor. I haven't had a ton of, to be honest with you, I was thinking about this earlier today. How many mentors have I really had? And I just really, honestly, I would say I haven't had a ton. I've had a lot of peers, guys to walk shoulder to shoulder with.
Yeah.
And then a lot of personal growth that I've worked on my own.
Well, I think what I love about that concept of growth is the intention behind it, right? Like growth that Brian's talking about isn't like just happening, right? With regardless of life circumstances, regardless of what's going on around you, there's some intent about learning what you don't know, right? Maybe it's reading some books, maybe it's jumping into some podcasts, but the idea of being intentional about growing, I think of like a conversion to the gospel of Jesus Christ, right? Like that doesn't happen by accident. Growth doesn't happen by accident. And I got to highlight the exception, Brian, that you were just sharing, because I think a lot of people have laid in their bed and made some promises. It's keeping the promise that's rare, right? It's like, man, I really hope I can be the dad that maybe I didn't have. But a lot of things get said growing up that we don't remember. He remembers, right? He remembers, but it's not necessarily like we're holding ourselves accountable for the things that maybe we uttered in desperate need.
Sure.
And I think that intent is is something that we could all be better at.
Yeah. I'm listening to you, Brian, talk about sort of that process and where that idea of growth comes from. And I'm just kind of thinking in my own mind, like, you start to dissect your own thoughts. Like, where did that become something for me? And I think it's when other people, you're pulling a train now, right? We've talked about this concept before, right? We've got other people now that where I go, they're going. And now it's like, oh shoot, I better drive between the lines now. You know what I mean? And I better drive a little straighter. And so I love that. I love that idea. And I also like that idea of walking shoulder to shoulder with people that are going through it, because there is power in that. And I'm with you, Brian. I don't know that I've had a ton of mentors in my life. There's definitely been people that have come in and out that have had influence on me for sure. But I think that I think I learned the most from walking with you guys, right? And seeing the guys that are in the battle that I'm in, and I can see it happening, going, oh my gosh, that's how I handle that next time, because that's important, man.
But like Brian said earlier, doing it the right way.
Yeah.
Because I think life presents you lots of non-examples.
Sure.
Right. We've seen pride men crash and burn, right?
Yeah.
We've seen private losses lead to very public losses.
For sure.
Right. We've seen morally bankrupt folks be exposed in public and go down. Right. So, like, to have peers that are vulnerable, to have peers that are like, guards down, this is kicking me in the shorts right now, and I need some help.
Okay. And the guards don't go down easy, right? We know this. And so typically I'm that guy in a conversation that's throwing stuff out that people are like, is this guy really going to be Debbie Downer and take us down that road today? You know what I mean? But I think I agree with you, Mike, that intentionality. But I also think that the beautiful thing about growth is that we can start it anytime, right? We can go off the rails and we can crash and burn, and we can be the worst at whatever we, at that moment, but we can always correct that. I think in a few episodes back, we had this discussion about, we talked about Pete Rose being in the Hall of Fame, right? Should Pete Rose be in the Hall of Fame? I don't know. Once a cheater, always a cheater. I mean, where are we at on this, right? But honestly, the older I get, the more I'm like, redemption, man. You screwed it up, but what's growth? Growth is just turning onto the right path and starting to walk
at any time. At any time. And there is no ledger where it's like, okay, to square it up with God, you write a check for this amount. No, it's like right now, everything's been paid.
Yeah.
Right now you can turn.
And that's it. Grace. I was just gonna say that, right? That's it. The only role that we can play, right, is that we can extend grace to people and say, hey, you know what? No, whatever happened, right? Now we're just moving forward. Absolutely. And that's a powerful thing, But
if you cook up a crazy situation where you have a bunch of dudes who are not owning anything and acting like everything's okay, and then you add to it this myth that we have an eternity of tomorrows. Right? Brian, before you jumped on the call, Tyler shared with us he lost a friend Tuesday. Right? Yeah. Tuesday, yeah. He goes up at a youth activity,
goes to bed and doesn't wake up. And there it is.
Like, let's remember that.
Yeah.
Let's make sure that we're taking advantage of the now on which the shadow stands, because that's the only thing that we can control.
Yeah.
It is so true. It is so true. It's yeah, I think none of us ever want to be left with regret, and that doesn't mean living scared. I mean, you can't live scared or, in this constant state of anxiety. But
Brian, you're a basketball coach. Can you play basketball scared?
No. You can't
play the game scared, right? And Tyler, we were talking Simon Sinek the other day. If you were born,
you're in the game. That's it.
Yeah.
So it's go time, right?
You're playing.
You gotta live. You gotta live.
I agree, Brian. And I love that. I love you using the word grace. I think that's powerful, man. I think that, you know, there's so much. Look, when I was a kid, you know, there wasn't a lot of sharing going on in the house, you know. So it's like, you know, everyone sucked it up and you just kind of moved on with life, and you either ran through the barriers or you got knocked over by them, you know. And I think that if we can be a little more open and have a little more honest conversations, I think we'd be surprised at how many people are going to extend grace and say, hey man, you know what? I've been there. I've been there.
Well, in the spirit of grace, I would ask Brian, how do you honor your mother? Because my heart goes out to single moms. I was raised by a single mom. But in the spirit of grace, I'll include your father, right? How do you honor your parents today?
Geez, that's a great question. So, my mom, went home to be with the Lord a few years ago. And you know, had a pretty short cancer battle and actually ended up passing from complications from some surgery rather than the cancer itself. My mom was a great lady, a believer, strong believer, but had a rough go, you know, raising 3 boys, tough situation. She ended up remarrying, and it was a very good situation for her. He adored her. He passed about 10 months before she did. And, you know, I kind of wonder sometimes about that. You know, you hear about that happen all the time where people just, they just kind of, when their you know, life partner passes, they just kind of lose some steam. And I definitely saw that with my mom. My kids all knew her very well. She was a part of their lives. And so she still lives on in our home for sure. And in terms of my father, he's dealing with some dementia issues and stuff like that. So he's not real healthy. You know, in that situation, it's been more of I've just forgiven, you know. It's I love him. And you know, one of the things that our pastor says at our church is, you know, forgiveness is mandatory, relationships are optional. And there's a lot of truth to that. And I think that sometimes people have trouble breaking away from that relationship part, or they think that they've got to continue to do this certain type of relationship. And I think there's ways to get back to your question, to honor without necessarily having that day-to-day relationship, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get that. Man, it's easy to say. I appreciate you letting us in on that.
Hey, Mike, can we talk about forgiveness for a second?
Can we talk about that? It's such an easy thing for me to sit here and to hear Brian say that, but it does not even come close to capturing the struggle.
Yeah. Brian, do you mind talking about what forgiveness has done for you?
Oh yeah, man. It you know, a lot of the things that, you know, I don't know exactly your background or your, you know, growing up situation, but a lot of the things that I went through as a kid, there were consequences of those things, meaning that there were struggles that I had as a young man growing up, you know, into my teen years, even into my 20s, that were residual effects of that trauma as a kid, right? Yeah. And it really, really wasn't until I got to a place with the individuals and the situations that happened, and I got to a place of forgiveness with them in that whole situation. Not face to face, I forgive you, sure, but you know, forgiveness is for the person, right, who's forgiving, right? Like you know, sometimes
It's not for the show.
No. And sometimes people don't know that they even needed to be forgiven. Their perspective is so wacky, right? And so, but letting some of those things go, Tyler, honestly, I wouldn't be close to who I am if I hadn't done that, because otherwise it's just all this junk strapped on you, right? And so it's been huge, man. It's been huge to let those things go. How do you do that? I don't know that you can tell somebody how to do that.
Right.
No, I just don't. I mean, I work with kids all the time, and we talk about forgiveness, and it doesn't mean you got to have a relationship. It just means that at some point in your heart, you got to move through it and move on.
Yeah. Sometimes it's like you've got to hike the path a little ways with the weighted backpack, right?
Yeah.
Until you realize that maybe there's a better way to do this without so much junk I got to carry around, you know?
Well, and I think we need to state the obvious too. I mean, I'm talking to three guys that believe in Jesus Christ. And I think that having any kind of conversation about forgiveness in the absence of his atoning sacrifice.
Right.
Like the only way.
Yeah.
That's it.
The only way because we have been wronged. And like Brian was saying, sometimes those wrongs put us on paths, right? They derail our lives. And then with that derailment come consequences and come, could be years of trauma. In some cases, generations of trauma.
Right. It's that, it's easy to justify, right? Because you get hurt and you're like, screw that. I'm not going to let that happen again. Right. So I'm hanging on to this thing because I'm not letting that happen again. And then as you march further down the path, that thing that you're hanging on to becomes this huge burden that starts to color everything that you see.
Yeah.
But
I love that idea, Tyler, of you saying, go down the path a little bit and you realize, hey, I'm not who I need to be. Hey, I'm not making progress in life.
Right.
Because of this thing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there are only so many things that can fill us up. And when we have all that other stuff, that's taken a chunk of who you are. Yeah. And it's a dark spot. It's a dark chunk that's not working.
Yeah.
It's not healthy. It's not, we talked about growth earlier. It's not allowing you to grow. And I agree, the walking down the path, it's like so many things, right? It's like as men, it's like there's so many things that we, for whatever reason, have to walk down that path and then go, what am I doing? Why am I here? Which again goes back to shoulder with brothers that you can count on to look at you too and go, man, not exactly seeing this. Like, you might want to rethink this. Or if you thought about it this way, and then being open to hearing that and not take it defensively, but it's that overused, maybe the accountability partner, but I believe in that. I really do.
Yeah.
I think that example that you just threw out there, Brian, is actually what you do really well. Like when I'm hanging out with you, those questions that you throw out there get me thinking, right? Get me in my business thinking almost with outside eyes to look and say, why am I doing it that way? Yeah. And I think that some of the important pieces of those intentional conversations that we have got to be okay with asking questions. And like you said, we can't be getting defensive. Right? The questions are just there to help us process things, because life's complex, right? It's complicated sometimes.
It is complex. I feel like, it's interesting. I feel like I'm 46 years old, in a really good space in my life. My faith's never been stronger, blessed with my family, work's great, all these good things. And I see in a lot of ways why I am where I am. And, that power of perspective, the 10,000 foot view, right? And I just go, man, I've had this thought a lot lately now that I've had a little downtime from work and I've been on vacation. Well, why wasn't I here earlier? I think like that, why did it take me so long to get to here? And that's the walk, man. That's this world. We're throwing so many things, and there's so many complications. And I think I'm just grateful that I got there. I got to a place that's good.
Yeah, and you know what? I'll be honest with you. I kind of feel like I'm hoping that 10 years from now, I'm looking and going, why did it take me so long to get here?
True.
Because I mean, honestly, if we're having that conversation with ourselves,
we're on higher ground.
We're on higher ground, right? We're pushing. And the walk maybe is the frustrating part, right? Because we're in the middle of all of it. But man, when we hit those peaks every so often, and you can look down and go, oh shoot, this is what I want,
So Brian, from your vantage point right now, as you do look back on your life, do you see any hinge moments that stand out? Tyler and I are big on this concept of hinge moments, these little things that might be a conversation. It might be somebody asked us to do, but in that little moment, our whole life pivots.
Yeah,
right?
I love the concept. And I've heard you, Mike, talk about these hinge points before, and it's an interesting thing to think about. You can go a lot of different directions. And certainly, I mean, when you really start scaling it back and looking in the rear view mirror, it's crazy, all those little things that shift us this way or that way or every which way.
Yeah.
But I think for me, those hinge points are the every single day, those impressions that we have about loving God, loving others, and service to others. Those things that pop up on a daily basis where you have that little impression of like, this is what I should do. But then you're like, I don't really want to do that right now. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And for me, those are the hinge points. And for me, they happen on a daily basis about just being present in whatever I'm doing and listening to my heart on the right way to do things. And those, when I do that, when I'm listening and I'm open to those things, and I believe that's how we hear God, is through those impressions or through friends or through, other people or through my kids. That's how I hear God. That I think those are the hinge points that happen all the time, because if I don't take those, every one of those are missed opportunities. And, I have a buddy at work who is just an unbelievable person. And he and I talk about that all the time, about how many times in our day are we missing it? Are we missing, God given those impressions? A friend speaking into us that or our spouse or our kids, and we just we don't hear it. We're too busy. We don't want to listen. And so for me, it's just that daily presence, that daily choice in those moments to make the love God, love others, serve others choice.
Man, all right, you're speaking my language, man.
Yeah, let's go.
I love that, man. The whole revelatory concept is
through people.
Man. Through people, right?
We hear God through people.
Can Brian?
I do.
Can we talk for a second about your faith and just
absolutely
when that becomes an important part of your life and a driving force in your life?
Absolutely. It's probably I love talk that and my family. I'd be in basketball. I'm happy to talk about all the time. So I had kind of an interesting path. I actually, my mom took us to church all the time, and she struggled with things. She found solitude in the church, Episcopalian church. And I grew up going to church, Episcopalian faith or denomination is very formal. It's very similar to the Catholic faith, very, a lot of rituals, and as a young kid, very difficult to conceptualize what's going on, right?
Yeah.
No personal relationship. So I went through, I was a altar boy acolyte, was confirmed in the church, did all that stuff, and amazingly went through all of that with no personal relationship with Jesus Christ. But I will say there was always something in me that was a little different, that was different from my brothers, that was different from the rest of my family. And at the time, probably couldn't put a finger on it, what it was. And now I know it was him, and me trying my best to listen to it. And so I've always believed in God. I just didn't have that relationship. So fast forward, I get to go through high school. I'm not real engaged with my faith, even through college, not engaged in my faith, but always searching for something. Maybe the better way to put it is always knowing something major was missing. Something was missing. And so, my wife and I, at some point, she did not grow up in the faith. Her family are not believers. And so we decided to try out a couple churches locally, and I re-engage, or maybe engage for the first time, really, to be honest with you, in my faith. And through relationships, through our church, my own personal exploration and dedication to learning and growing, getting in the Word, devotionals, being involved. It's changed everything for me, Tyler. I mean, it's changed. It's interesting because I look at my growth and my faith as this zigzag, right? And that zigzag process took a long time of in and out of just, truly submitting. And once that happened, it was the game changer in everything. And, it's that what's one of the most valuable things that we can have, peace of mind. Right. And I really, really honestly say that I have that now through my faith in Jesus Christ.
Can I marry two things you just said? Actually, even getting into your comments before Tyler's question, you talked about we don't want to listen, right? And then you're talking. So that's one position, and then you get into this concept of submitting. Can we talk a little bit about that? Because I find myself wrestling with that sometimes. I'm with you 100%. I believe that God, one of the ways that I hear him is through people in my life. And I'm grateful for it. And I appreciate that. What they say sometimes is not easy. It is not convenient. It is not well timed. It requires stretch and challenge. How do we get to a point of submitting? I love the idea of submitting, and submitting to me feels like almost like unconditional. Come what may, whatever counsel, whatever is given, I'm all in. I'm not rebelling here. I'm submitting. How do you get to that place when sometimes what he has to tell us is not easy to hear?
Whew, that's a good one. I think it's a combination, right, of digging deep into the Word, right, and using that as your foundation. And I mean, I think we could study that book for the rest of our lives and still learn every single time and get something different every single time. So for me, it's that combination, Mike, of staying deep in that, trying to continue to learn, combined with other texts and reading that I do. And I think that then allows me to put in better perspective what I am hearing God through other people, as kind of the filter, because I think the Bible has to be the filter, because that otherwise I think it makes it hard to know, where is that coming from? Right?
So many voices, right?
So many
so
voices.
Much noise.
But if we don't have that foundation in what our true core beliefs are and what the word says, I think it can get super confusing. And so for me, that's where it is. I have this, I heard this guy speak one time, and he was talking about his Bible, his daily reading in the Bible. Sometimes he'll read one verse and that'll be it. His plan is simply to dig in where he left off and read until it's like in the square in the middle of the eyes. And then that's his place to stop for that day and meditate on that and focus on that. And I loved it. I thought
we have some friends, Tyler, that have that same strategy, right? Read until you're moved upon and it light between the eyes. It's like, maybe it's a verse, maybe it's a chapter. So here's the $1 million question. Brian Beasley, father of 4. How do you convey that? How do you convey that love of the word? How do you convey that aligning process to kids that are looking at you saying, man, why does dad read that Bible so much? Right? Maybe they don't have the relationship. Maybe they do. Kids are kids, and there is no age limit on finding that faith and having that relationship. But sometimes we are competing with TikTok, right? Like how do you convey
video, it'll take you right out of it,
how do you convey that? How do you, I hope when my kid sees me reading the scriptures, but hope is a terrible strategy.
Yeah.
How do I be intentional in conveying what this is doing for me and that it can do the same for them?
Yeah. It's kind of like I'm sure you guys have heard this before, but a lot of times the only Bible people will ever read is you. Right. And, so it's, the concept of more is caught than taught. Right. So I think for me, and this goes against kind of, it's hard for me because I want to preach, right? I want to preach to the kids. I want to get after it. But I realize that the most important thing that we can do as parents, in pretty much not just in terms of faith, but in all things, is the modeling piece, modeling the biblical principles that were laid out for us, and
including repentance.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Showing them, hey, look, dad screwed up.
Absolutely.
I need to go through these things.
Picking your spots on, not quoting, book and verse and stuff like that with the kids, but talking to them and praying with them and being intentional about conversations. I talk to parents about this all the time, not in terms of faith, but in terms of having conversations with your kids. If you're not intentionally planning conversations with your kids, you're losing opportunities. Okay.
Whoa. Back up. I'm going to take my highlighter out. If you're not intentionally planning conversations with your kids, you're losing opportunities with them.
Yes. Because, I know that I'm going to be taking the kids to practice or whatever, or to school, you need to have times where you're like, okay, I know I've got to get this conversation in. How am I going to do it? How is it going to flow? How are we going to, kind of make it come up in a natural way? And that's similar to with the faith. And I think one of the most powerful things we can do is pray with our kids. It's amazing. One of the things that's amazing to me is when I hear my kids pray, how much insight you get to what they're thinking about and what they're worried about and what they're hoping for and who they're thinking about and what's on their brain. Because when we pray and we open ourselves up to communicating with God, we tap into where we're at, where our heart's at. And so I don't have it perfectly figured out by any means.
That sounds pretty good, Brian. I mean, it reminds me of Ashton Buswell. You want to talk about life, or you want to talk about girls, right?
Right.
And his dad would ask him that on their drives to tournaments. But
you want to talk about God or the galaxy?
Yeah, you want to talk about God or the galaxy, right? But I think I love that idea of submission too. That's an interesting concept, because I'll be honest with you, I'm by nature, man, I do not want to submit. You tell me something, I want to go the opposite direction. You know what I mean?
Can we talk a little bit and dig deeper on the idea behind that engagement, right? You said I was not engaged with my faith, but I felt like something was missing. And I just think, Tyler, I think of the people that might be engaged with a religion.
Yeah.
And missing that relationship, right? Like there's people that might be engaged with a church, any church, pick a church, right? But not necessarily engaged with God and his son, right? And I think that I wrestle with that sometimes. I get my mind, like, especially as I'm raising children. Hey kids, are we putting on the church clothes, going to church out of ritual? Or are we doing this because this is how we worship and this is how we close that gap between us and him, right? Square things up again.
I don't know that things, and I love that point, because I think sometimes we do separate those things, right? We dress up for that. We go through we do the red carpet walk. We've talked about that before, right? We do church, and then things are different. But man, if we're just living it, I love your comments, Brian, about, the only Bible that people are going to read is you, right? I mean, I think that I love that, I think that's,
well, how many of us, it's like his disciples walking with him and they didn't even know.
They didn't even know.
Right.
How many of us are walking with him?
Right.
And we don't even know.
Well, I mean, it's the church, church can be such a great thing, but it can be such a, it's filled with people.
Yeah.
Right. And it's led, we have leaders that are people, and people make mistakes, and people get judgmental, and people, want to go back to the law. And, that's the hard part, is when grace starts to get lost in a church and people aren't looking to get other people saved and loved and cared about. That's where the church becomes a problem. It does. It can very easily turn into, very similar to a routine, like going to work and doing, doing the yard.
It could very easily be counting steps on the Sabbath.
Yep.
Like if we don't check ourselves and check our intent and make sure that it is about love and that it's not about, right? I think of that conversation that we had with Kurt Frankham, Tyler. Grace has no but. It's not like, we love those people, but we can't condone their behavior. That's not grace.
Right. Well, I mean, in my mind, we're doing church right now.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. Yeah.
Wes Frank says, you guys are lucky, man. You get church on Thursdays.
Yeah. It's true.
No, but you're right.
I agree with that. Yeah. I agree with that.
And I'm listening to you, Brian, and you've mentioned your pastor teaching you things. You've mentioned, that good brother talking about how he studies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that's the benefit of, for me, the church is the community.
Absolutely.
Church is the community that allows us to sharpen our saw, that allows us to, I mean, it's a hospital for sinners.
Oh yeah.
Right.
And don't get me wrong. Like, I love attending church, and I love, my wife and I both, the worship music. When we went back to church for the first time when things started opening up, and we had worship music at the beginning of the service, it was like my eyes got teared up, stirred. I was stirred by being there with other believers that, you don't realize. It's like so many things during that lockdown that you didn't realize how much you needed it and how much you missed it until you're back in it. And then you're going, man.
Yeah. It's that John Donne, no man is an island unto himself. Right.
Yes.
I mean, that's it. I think there's
all part of the main.
That's right. There's a power in that community for sure.
Exactly.
Brian, is there something that you know to be true in life? You're holding it as a precious truth, and the only way you learned it was the hard way.
It feels like everything I've done. You know what I mean? There's so many things that I've learned the hard way. Talking about that zigzag of life. But I think for me, as a former athlete and coach, and I think my nature is to be intense and passionate and direct. I think that hurt me in relationships in my younger years. And I think I even still fight it sometimes now a little bit, because, our past selves keep knocking on the door even when we're through it. Right. And you got to sometimes push it down and regroup. But just going back to that thought of grace and having grace for other people, and, just being a better friend and listening to people and understanding that we're all flawed. I think I had to learn that the hard way by at times bulldozing sometimes, and maybe being direct when direct wasn't the right way to do it. I don't know where, I think it was Rick Warren, who wrote The Purpose-Driven Life, pastor at Saddleback Church. He talks about the ministry of presence, and it's just sometimes the best thing you can do is just be there, be with people, not have anything to say, just listen, take it in, and sometimes bite your tongue. And I think it took me a long time to realize that it's a good thing sometimes to just bite my tongue and give people grace.
Yeah, that's an Eric Goss moment. We had a guest on the other night that talked about that same thing, Mike, that, just extending that grace and learning that maybe there's some things that are better left unsaid, right?
And it's not worth it, right?
It's not worth it. Yeah.
The thing that you're going to say, whatever worth or value you think it might have, it's just not worth it to ruin the moment, or to poison a relationship, or break someone's heart.
It's funny. I used to tell, I had a friend who would get pretty fired up about stuff, and he'd write these emails, he'd send them off, and man, these emails were rough to read. And I told him, I said, here's what I want you to do. I want you to write it. I want you to read it, and I want you to delete it, and then you can rewrite it and send it back, then you can send it off. And as we're talking, I'm thinking, man, it'd be great if we could do that in our conversations, right? There's some of those that I'd like to have back, or shoot, I shouldn't have said that. That wasn't needed. Nobody's growing from that one,
Well, just recognizing that people are people, and everybody's got stuff, and we don't always know what's going on in other people's lives. So sometimes people get short, or people say things that, from the outside perspective seem so ridiculous to say, and you want to maybe bite back or jump back with them, and you just have to know that it's not always, even though it sometimes feels like it's directed at you, it's not always about you, you know?
Yeah.
And just that recognition that people say things, people do things, they don't always mean them, and they've got things going on in their life that maybe is causing them to do that.
Well, and that ministry of presence too could come down to our own show up. You know, where are we coming from?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
What, name our feeling right now so that we can check ourselves. If we're toxic to be around people right now, maybe we shouldn't be around people right now. And I think that's a challenge.
I love that idea. I think Troy Blanchard talked to us about transitions, right? Like knowing coming in from work and, you talked about this a little bit, Brian, like, carrying stuff with you when you're coming in, just knowing where your headspace is, you walk in the door, chaos is going on, and you've had it rough for the last 8 hours at work, and what's going to be the reaction? Maybe we need to turn around and take a drive around the block. I don't know.
And that gets so much easier as you get older too.
Yeah,
it really does.
Yeah.
It really does. Unfortunately, it's like, we have kids when we're young, and
that's right. Yeah.
We gain all this wisdom and
it's a fixed game, man. Like,
yeah, no doubt.
If we could have it when we needed it. But I think that's the funny thing about strength, right? Is over time you get what you need because of the lift. If you had to lift what you were lifting right now as a 46-year-old man when you were young and married at 21, you'd be crushed.
Forget about
That's
it.
Right.
Yeah.
But over time, right? Triplets come.
And here we go.
Over time, you're qualified to carry that load. And not only that, you can actually see the struggling people that might be struggling with their load and come to them. It is no shock to me. And we can get into, so you and Roxanne get married, you guys get into school and career. And I don't know why you chose to do what you did, but it is no shock to me now that you are helping people in the role that you're in. And I don't know if you would have thought that when you were 19 or 20. I don't know what you wanted to do or wanted to be, but you are exactly where you need to be, doing exactly what you should be doing. I'm learning, though, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a talent, because talent, when I say that, maybe blows off a lot of hard work that you've put in, right? So I don't want to say that you're just rolling out of bed changing people's lives because you have this talent. But the path that has led you to do what you're doing is inspired, right? I mean, what did young 17-year-old, 18-year-old Brian Beasley think he was going to be doing as a middle-aged man?
Yeah, that's a great question. I remember my junior and senior year of high school having trouble sleeping because I was up thinking about that, not sure what was next. I even went into college not really knowing. I thought I wanted to do something with, like a lot of former athletes, right? I want to do something with either fitness or, physical therapy or athletic training or something like that. And had a lot of jobs from, really my first employment through college, where I was working with kids. I was running sports camps. I was lifeguarding. I was teaching swim lessons. I was umpiring. I was doing all these things, coaching all the way through college. And it just kind of hit me, I'm good at this and I enjoy being with kids. I always said, especially early on, that I'd rather work with kids than adults all day, And I'm very blessed with, I'm very grateful for what I get to do every day work-wise. In fact, I had a summer school teacher reach out to me today, and we were just talking about some kids, one of my kids that she's worried about. And I just told her, I said, what a great thing that we get to do every day, where we get to have these impacts on kids if we choose to, right?
Right.
And that part never gets old for me, obviously sometimes the the inner workings of schools and things like that can get it frustrating, but helping kids never does.
Hey, Brian, we've talked about, the work that you're doing, with the youth at school. You've got 4 kids of your own at home. You've kind of, you've had your hand in helping some people in a lot of different areas. What gives you hope these days?
My faith. I mean, it really is that. It's my faith. I think also getting to work with kids and seeing some of these kids that go through these tough situations and come out on the other side. I think that's encouraging also. But I do truly believe that my faith allows me to really be able to stomach even watching the news and seeing all the things that are going on in this world, because we know that this is a stop off, right? This is not the whole thing, right? This is, and we know that there are going to be problems, there are going to be tough things, but the hope is in him, and that's pretty clear to me.
So I hate to follow that answer with this question, but what are you afraid of?
I don't, honestly, at this stage of my life, I don't know that I'm really afraid of much. I think something that I pray a lot about is my children, and that they will have a strong foundational personal relationship with Christ, and that walk will be strong for a lifetime. That they'll be happy and healthy and well-adjusted adults, that they will marry a spouse, a godly spouse. Those are the things that do keep me up. Sometimes I don't know if I'm afraid of it as much as it's at the front of my mind and my heart a lot of the time. Is just praying for their well-being, praying for a good life with a spouse that they can love and that loves them and helps grow them as they get older, Yeah. And I think just that, Mike, you and I have talked about it too. I think one of the things that's hard, and I know it's hard for you too, Mike, is just, it's exciting to see our kids grow up, but it's also there's that feeling a lot of the time of just the slipping away too of this time of life. Because, Roxanne and I love being parents. We say it all the time. We love where our kids are right now. And it's just, we're having the time of our life, and the next stage will be great too. But it's, that's something I think about too. Is just the transition.
Gentlemen, I don't know if you're having these thoughts, but I'm going to share what's keeping me up at night. I often wonder what my in-laws thought when Mike Freeman walked in the house to meet and date their daughter. Because the Mike Freeman then is not the Mike Freeman today. Thanks to the love of a good woman, thanks to Jesus Christ, thanks to a loving Heavenly Father, right? But I just wonder if I'm going to be able to see past the shortcomings of whatever dude comes in to court Grace Freeman. And to be fair, whatever young lady comes to date my son, will I have the faith to look past the immediate shortcomings and weaknesses that are going to be presented, knowing that life is long, the gospel is great at changing people?
Can I weigh in on that? Since I'm there, man. You're there, man. You're there. I'm there. I've got a daughter who is there.
You're there.
And I would say this, that, you can, you'll look past those things, because what you'll look at is the happiness of your daughter and your son. And that's it, right? You'll see that. And when, I was telling my wife the other night, I'm like, because the same thoughts run through my head, right? You want these things for your kids so badly, and you want them to be in a better place than you were. And, so there's this, you're projecting all of these things. And I was kind of laying these at the feet of my wife, all of my concerns. And then, she just said, well, we've spent, 19 years with her in our house. And I think we can trust that she's going to pick the right guy to treat her the right way. And I trust my wife's wisdom on that. Right. I mean, I think that when knowing you gentlemen right here over the last couple of hours, and the way that you guys are, I think that you can trust that your kids are going to make good decisions when it comes to that. So
that's good wisdom.
What's running through my head is I can't believe I'm going to go country, but it's She's in Love with the Boy by Trisha Yearwood. Right? Where this dad's like, man, this guy, when it comes to brains, he got the short end of the stick. And she's like, hey, settle down. My dad said the same thing about you.
Yeah. Yeah. That is so true.
It's funny.
And it's all going to come around. It's all going to come around. Hey, I don't want to let an opportunity go by, Brian, with you on the call. One of the conversations that we had recently, you followed that up with a text of the resolution. And the resolution is a document we can include in the show notes. I think it's a powerful thing. It stems from a movie called Courageous, right? 2011. We'll include all of this in there. But can you talk to me a little bit about that? Why did you send that to me? Man,
I'll tell you what. So that's been one of those movies that I've been meaning to watch. It's by the Hendrick brothers, who do a lot of faith-based movies. And so I found the time to, watch it over a few day period, and it stuck with me. When you watch something or you listen to a podcast and it stuck. And so I found myself doing a little research, going to Dr. Google and doing a little research. Well, come to find out, there's a book called The Resolution for Men. And then there's actually this resolution from the movie. And it's just kind of a recommitment for men, for godly men, on how we go about being husbands, how we go about being dads, how we go about being brothers with other men. And it's awesome. Yeah, Mike, put it up on there.
We'll put it up with a challenge for folks to do something about it, right?
Yeah.
And I think it really is kind of that line in the sand, or just reaffirming
absolutely
who we're trying to be.
Yeah. And in the movie, they actually, if you haven't seen the movie, you gotta watch the movie.
Get ready, man. It's rough. Yeah.
In the movie, they actually have a ceremony with the dads and the families where they sign this thing, and they frame it and they put it in the house. And it's just, it kind of goes back to some of those conversations we had about, how do you connect with your kids about our faith, or how do you help encourage that? Well, things like this, right? That we're making that commitment as fathers to make this important. I'm dedicating myself to do these things, putting myself out there to do these things. And I'm letting you know what they are. And as a dad or as a husband or both, another book that I'm going through right now, Becoming a King by Morgan Snyder. And that is a similar kind of book, dealing with men, it all focused on men, and he's connected with John Eldridge. I don't know if you guys know who that is.
That's right.
I just purchased it. It came up in a conversation with someone else.
John Eldridge, all his stuff is awesome. But this Becoming a King is kind of the regaining of or taking back masculinity, and what that means in our faith, and what that means in our role as men, fathers and husbands. And it's so good. So it's interesting how both of those books came my way. One of them I kind of pursued, and I had heard about becoming a king on a podcast. Actually, I don't know if you got country music, going back to country music. I had heard Thomas Rhett talking on a podcast, and he mentioned that book. And so I tapped into that, but good stuff. It's just no different than what we're doing here, just in book form.
That's awesome.
Can I get a little practical on something you mentioned earlier in our conversation? You talked about being big on habits. Could you talk to me a little bit and give me a practical, what does your morning routine look like? Not your summer mode.
Right.
Mode. That might be a little different, right?
When my kids and my wife hear this, they'll laugh because I'm horrible in the morning.
Oh, okay. Well,
I'm a mute in the mornings. I'm just kind of kept to myself.
So where do you capture the power of habits then?
Yeah, the podcast thing has been so important. When I'm in the car, when I'm driving to work, home from work, I'm on my bike, I'm working out, I'm listening. And that's been I'm doing yard work. That's been a huge thing for my growth. And then every chance I get, I'm reading. I try to read. And so those are habits that in our busy life, it's hard for me to be consistent on a specific time with those things. And it's more of just pushing myself that when I have those free moments to use them in times of, like I said, if I'm working out, sometimes it's easier to listen to music. No, I pop on the podcast so I can grow, I can get fed. And so I did read a book not too long ago. I think it's called The Miracle Morning. Have you guys read that?
Yeah.
Hal Elrod, I think it is. Great book. And I love the concept of it. I'm not there yet.
Well, that's all right, man. Mornings are rough, man.
Oh, geez.
So yeah. Brian, I've taken so much from our conversation, and honestly, there's a hymn that comes to my mind as we're having this conversation. And it's a point I've made before, but I want to reemphasize it. There's a hymn in our hymn book. I don't know if it's in everyone's hymn book, but it's "Brightly Beams Our Father's Mercy," and it talks about the wary seagoing vessel that's just trying to get home, that's just trying to get into harbor, and it's been beaten and battered by the storms, and it looks into the harbor and it lines itself up with lower light, and the lower lights indicate the safe passage home. And I just love that concept, because I get it. Jesus Christ is the light and life of the world. I understand that. I believe that wholeheartedly. I'm just eternally grateful for the lower lights, for the Brians, for the Tylers, right? We can list these people that show me what Matthew 6 looks like, right? Shows me what John 15 looks like. Like, there's just in persona right next to me, shoulder to shoulder, saying, this is how I'm trying to do it. What do you think? And I'm just grateful, because we're not making it home without it. We're not making it home without it. We have the lighthouse, right? We have Jesus Christ showing the way, but he shows it through other people. Like Brian, you said, we hear God through other people, right? We read, we get in the word, we close the book, we go live our lives. And as we interact, people are inspired around us to say things to light our fire, right? To keep us going. And that concept of, I'm a huge hinge moment guy, but as I listen to you talk about being a hinge moment for others, like that just kind of gives me that brain, that mind blown emoji, right? Like that I can be that for other people. And there's moments. And I just want to point out too, we have moments and we swing and miss, and sometimes we don't even swing. But God isn't up there keeping score of our misses, right? He's got another one. Hey, tomorrow, wake up July 2nd and see what's in store. And it's almost like, Tyler, that expectancy. Yeah. Well, I would have done that different. Well, I kind of set that one up for you to crush, and you didn't even see it, right? Let's give him another go. Let's give him another go.
Because who's the hardest person for most of us to give grace to is ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and that is, just to go back, I know we all keep saying it, but that shoulder to shoulder, that's when you need your brothers to say, hey, tomorrow's a new one.
Well, and there's something about normalizing the struggle, right? Like,
Yeah.
hey, we're all in this thing.
Right.
Unlimited
Don't beat yourself
opportunity.
up about it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And we do. And I think
Yeah.
it's, I think the best thing that we can do is deal with it. Deal with what, if there's something weighing on us about an interaction that we had with one of our children or with our wife or whatever, take it head on, go deal with it, and then move on and give yourself the grace that, we get endless opportunities, while we're here.
Yeah.
So like you guys said earlier, another good book, Win the Day, Mark Batterson, awesome book. And that's basically what that whole book is about. Each day you get an opportunity. Let's do today. And some days you get to the end of the day and you're like, well, that just didn't go well. And you get to do it again. But like everything you just said, I couldn't agree with you more. I feel the same way about, you and Tyler. It's been great getting to know you here. And there are a lot of guys like us, there really are. Sometimes you just gotta pull it out.
Can I extend that a little bit? You're in someone's ear right now. You talked about your mom having a rough go, a tough go. Right now, there's someone listening that's having a tough go.
Yeah.
What would you say to that person?
Keep fighting, right? We can do so much more than we think we can do. I mean, it's interesting. I lost Tyler, you lost a friend last week, and I lost somebody very, very close to me a few years back. And it was interesting during that time. I was so devastated, but I don't think I've ever felt the presence of God more, like on me, like in me, right there. And ever since I had that, I want it back every day. But it was in the middle of that mess.
Amen. Absolutely.
That he was right there. And through that tragedy, I think I just want, people that are struggling, you can do more and you can get through more than you realize if you've got that, if the foundation's built not on sand, but on rock, right? And we know what that means. And so, our faith needs to be strong, and we need to surround ourselves with people who are going to love us and care for us when we're going through those hard times.
And I would throw that out there too. I would throw out a cool exercise to do as part of study is check out what Jesus does in the context of the word immediately. Whatever gospel search, whatever Bible search tool you have, just type in immediately and see what happens, what Christ can do immediately. Right? Going back to you can jump in at any time. You can change at any time. And in the middle of a mess, he's there. When that mess strikes, it's not like, okay, let Mike go 48 hours on his own and then send in the help. It's there immediately, and shockingly so, right? Like you say, as you look back, you're at this peace that defies all of your surroundings. And it's the only way, right? The only way is him.
I think we're gonna have to have Brian come back, and we're gonna have a conversation about.
Seriously,
I would love to dive into this idea of how we hear him, how we connect, and that process of learning to listen. Right? I think that's a huge conversation I would love to have, and I feel like Brian's got some nuggets of gold in there you could drop on us on that.
I'm down, man. Anytime.
I love
Hey,
it.
Brian, we talked about honoring your parents. Is there anyone else that you would like to honor as we wrap up our time together?
Yeah. You know, and Mike, I've told you this before. I mean, Mylan Woolard, who was my principal for 16 years at Shasta High School, you know, talking about modeling as a father, as a believer, as a leader. It's interesting because he's been a mentor, I guess, now that I look at it, but he's also been a shoulder to shoulder guy. You know, he was there for a lot of things. And we both been there for each other, but you know, he used to always say, family first, Bees, family first. He'd always say that. And he'd say, you know, especially with having triplets and, you know, some of the circumstances of dealing with that and kids with health issues during that time and all those things. And he would never question, as my boss, he would never, it was like, you take care of your family. And, so that dude's been a really, really important guy and continues to be in my life. And so if there was somebody that I was going to throw out an honor right now, outside of my family, that's the guy.
You know what, Mylan, we're coming after you, brother.
Yo, he would be awesome on this.
Tag, you're it.
He would be awesome.
I love it, man. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, Brian, we've done 2 hours together, man, and it doesn't seem possible really that it's been 2 hours. And you know, Mike and I have said this many times when we've spent time and we've had a good time with our guests. I just feel like I don't want it to end, man. Like I could just sit here and talk and listen and learn all night. And I'm grateful for who you are, for sure. I mean, it's a big deal. It's great to come on a podcast and see the people that are fighting the fight and that are doing the work. And so grateful for you and for who you are. You know, this show is called The Richest Man in Town. It's modeled after or taken from It's a Wonderful Life and George Bailey's example of discovery in that life. And I can tell you, spending a couple hours with you, I'm a little jealous of Mike. He gets to do this on a regular basis with you, but I will tell you that I can.
We'll FaceTime you in next time.
All right, good. I can see the richness and I appreciate what you're doing and how you're living this rich life. But Brian, what does it mean to you to be considered the richest man in town?
Yeah. First of all, Tyler, right back at you on all that stuff, man. I feel the exact same way. You couldn't have said it better. So thank you, man. Thank both of you guys. I think for me, you know, richest man in town is it's about having gratitude for what we're blessed with. That peace of mind, right? Being not satisfied is the wrong word. Being just so thankful for the blessings that we have and not looking beyond what we have. And then just being a present friend, being a present dad, and being a present husband. That, to me, if I can get there, and the days that I do get there, man, I do sure feel like the richest man in town, filled up, and knowing that I've got a God that looks at me like he looks at Jesus Christ blows my mind.
That's a powerful thought, and I don't know if I've ever heard it expressed that way. Again, evidence, Tyler, that Brian Beasley's days on this program are not done.
No, not by a long shot, man.
You can't go out like that with an answer like that, and then we got to wrap it up.
I'm down. I love it. This has been great. Like Tyler said, that was the quickest 2 hours I've had in a long time. So
Brian,
appreciate you guys.
Thank you for doing this. It's funny. I'm going to kind of let people in on behind the scenes. So Brian's a former athlete. Brian's a coach. He texts me. He's like, I'm in pregame mode. Right. and I texted him back and it's just like, so, okay, you're right. Focus on your show up. Focus on the only thing you can. And man, you showed up, brother. You showed up.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, it was a good evening. You guys are doing the Lord's work here, and it's great. I hope you guys are getting great feedback.
Yep. Let's keep. Yeah, we get all that. You don't.
Yeah.
No,
but here's the thing, Brian, and I mean this in all sincerity. I mean, we get the benefit of hearing from people that listen to Brian Beasley's words and call us or text us or email us or message us on social media about the impact that your words had on them. And I have no doubt that that's going to be the case because, I know when I'm feeling it, when we're talking, I know that other people are going to feel it, man. Tonight was just, it was powerful, and I couldn't be more grateful.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Feel the same way, man.
And really, if it's for the three of us, it's enough.
It's good enough, man.
It's good enough. So,
amen.
Truth.
So Brian, you keep going, brother. You keep going. There's no quit. Enjoy that summer. Thank you for pouring into kids, and you just have no idea, right? We have no idea the influence and impact that you're having on people all around you. So. Yeah. Keep the faith and you keep fighting, right? Hug your wife, hug those kids, right? Present. Even that 19-year-old firefighter, when you see him, just hug on him, right?
Hey, if you can, throw him a prayer tonight because it's a scary situation. It's been last few days has been pretty real for Mom and I, just trying to stomach not having that contact with him, knowing that he's up there doing it, but he's serving,
and thank God for him, for his work. Amen. So, hey, we appreciate it, man. Thanks again for the time tonight. And we will definitely do this again. Round 2 upcoming.
Absolutely. All right, brothers. Appreciate it. Okay. Bye.
Good idea, Ernie. A toast to my big brother, George, the richest man in town.